We are tuned in to fitness and consciousness. Today's episode is part of the path notes of the Skeptical Mystic series, and it's about signs on our path. The series, the path notes series is, it'll play out over time. I've done one episode under that name, and I don't try to make it too complicated, but there's a lot of different things that I try to talk about on the show, and I try to put some of them into a category. But the Path Notes series is the only one that's kind of different. But this is a poem from Galib. It's more about his poems. And he wrote in ghazals, I believe is how you pronounce it, and they're it's just a type of poem. But I agree, O heart, that my ghazals are not easy to take in. When they hear my work, experienced poets tell me I should write something easier to understand. I have to write what's difficult. Otherwise, it is difficult to write. Some of these ideas that are complicated, I just explore them on the show. I don't have everything written out perfectly, and I just have an outline, have several things to read through, and we'll see where we go. So part of the path, let me talk about relationships, and we get signs on that this is the right relationship for me. This thing happened, or then there's red flags, and we usually just ignore the red flags. I mean, for whatever reason, we get warnings about someone. Oh no, that can't be. But we see a sign that works, we see the sign that tells us what we want to hear, and it's that's real, man. I'll get into the relationship stuff in just a little bit here, but path notes, the signs on my path for my jobs, for instance, have been kind of interesting. I started as a trainer shortly after high school. I was 20 years old, and I had the job that I wanted. I had my dream job, 20 years old. And then I don't want to get too into it now, but the first place I worked, I was an employee trainer, and the owner just let me do whatever I wanted with the clients, and she never tried to control anything that I did. I left that place after about a year and a half for one that was more successful. And the owner ended up being a control freak. He wanted to control my own workouts, and the workouts we did with clients. And at that place, all the trainers worked with all the clients. So they had the same few people, but over and over, they'd be switching trainers over and over, rather. And so I had enough of that, and I decided to quit, and I started selling lawn care. And so I quit doing my dream job and started doing something that I absolutely couldn't care less about, which is lawns. And it was decent money and everything, but I was wanting to learn Qigong. I'd been reading about it, And I got an estimate one day to do like one evening for the next day. And I was going through them, and there was this one that like shocked me. And it said the name was Yang Shao. And I was like, whoa, I'm going to ask if he teaches Qigong. It didn't say anything about that on the estimate. And so I get there, and it says Essence of China Urban Acupuncture Clinic. And it didn't say anything about that on the estimate either. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. It was ran out of a house, had the business on one side. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. And usually time is money, so I try to be in and out as soon as possible. But I was taking forever because I rang the doorbell and nobody came out. And then after I wandered around just about as long as I could, I started to leave, rang the doorbell again, and I was leaving. And I saw him open the door. And so I stopped, and I went to talk to him, and he didn't speak English. And I, it's kind of like showed that I was there for the lawn, and he called his son, and I talked to his son about the lawn. And then I said, do you teach Qigong? And he's like, Qigong, Tai Chi. I'm like, okay, will you teach me Qigong? He's like, Qigong, Tai Chi. And so he calls his daughter. It turns out his daughter was the doctor, the acupuncture and herbal doctor, and she's like, yeah, he'll teach you. When do you want to come in? So I made an appointment, and I started learning Qigong from him. I had private lessons for some time, and first time I went in, she was there, and then she was there sometimes to translate because he didn't really speak English, and she asked me, well, what kind of Qigong do you want to learn? I said, well, how about healing Qigong? And she's like, you mean like the kind where you like run your hands over people and heal them? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, that takes a long time and it doesn't work very well. And I said, okay, I'll learn whatever he wants to teach me then. And so I started the lessons, and that continued on for a while. And so it was interesting because I would have, I mean, there was no like advertising or anything that I would have been able to like look him up in the phone book and figure that out that he taught there. So that change in my path, going from doing exactly what I wanted to for a living to selling lawn care, led me to my teacher. And I still do some of what he taught me. So there's like signs on the path, and we have to kind of discern whether these signs are like dead end. You got to go. You got to turn around and go back another way, or maybe it's just some like a muddy spot. Maybe there's like a tree falling over the path, and just got to climb over it and keep on the path. There's obstacles. There's going to be obstacles, but when we get to these different signs, what do we do with them? How do we interpret them? And can we say that they're really from some universal power that has our best interest in mind, or just a coincidence, or just life, just the way things happen? Part of that happens in relationships. Relationships are a big part of that, where people will often look for signs, and I do too. And I've had a lot of interesting things happen Some of this I might have said on the last path notes, but some of it's going to be new also. But there was a time I was with the last last serious girlfriend that I had, long term thing, and so if you listen to the show, you may know I have a thing with woodpeckers. My dad was always good at finding woodpeckers, and he could see them from far away, and he would try to point them out to me when I was a kid. We'd be out in the woods, and he'd hear them or see them, and he'd try to point them out to me, and I couldn't ever see them. And he died in 2005, so I was 25, 20, yeah, and that went on, and I didn't really ever remember seeing the woodpeckers that he was always trying to point out to me. And the day after he died, I was doing training martial arts with some buddies of mine in my garage, and we were talking outside when they were about to leave, and there was this bird on my fence. It was just demanding my attention, and I kept trying to listen to my buddies and talk to my buddies, and I kept looking over at this bird and trying to listen to my buddies, and I kept looking over at this bird. And finally I asked, what kind of bird is that? And my buddy Mike said, that's a woodpecker. Okay. Well, I ended up losing my job, the job selling lawn care, the day after my dad's funeral. And I got super into birds. I started really studying them a lot, and I was getting bird food for the tree in my front yard. I had this really tall white pine tree, and it became like the grand central station of all kinds of woodpeckers and birds of all sorts. It was really neat. So I was just studying them. I was out of work, and I just got really into them. And then I became the one that could see the woodpeckers from far away. So then I went on to show my kids. I'd be able to point them out from far away, and I'd be in the woods with someone, and I could see them easily and point them out. And I had an idea one time with the girlfriend I was just talking about before I get that little backstory, and I had this idea pop into my mind. I was like, I wonder if she could find the tree where my dad and I buried my dog. And it was out at this park, this big park, and it had a lot of trees at this park, a lot of woods, and I don't know what made me think of that, but she just, okay, well, I'll see if I could find it. So just started off in the general direction of the part of the woods where my dog is buried, and so she starts walking down the path, and I'm following a few steps behind, and we walk for a little while, and then it gets down to the river, and you have to go either left or right. And she goes, left. I said, yep. And so she starts walking down that part of the trail after turning, and I'm just behind her, not giving any kind of clues or nothing. I did describe the tree. It was like a big tree with multiple trunks. My dad said those were sacred. So she's walking and walking for maybe another 10 minutes or so. And there's this big woodpecker, a pileated woodpecker, called from across the river. And she stopped and looked at it, looked in that direction across the river. And then she turned around really fast and pointed at the tree right behind her and said, is that it? I said, yep. That's it. And that was the tree. She could have touched it. Of all the trees that she could have been walking by when that woodpecker called, it was the one where my dad and I buried our dog. So it's something like beyond, coincidence. And well, what's it a sign of? It could say, oh, she's the one. Or it could just mean it's a sign that there is something more after we leave these bodies behind and go on to whatever's next, that there is something next that can communicate with us here. That seems to be that does seem to be the case. I know there's some other people with bird stories and some with their loved ones that died, and there's some kind of bird story to go along with it. But her and I didn't end up staying together. I'd say it was a good relationship, and we had a lot of neat signs. And then that ended, and it ended peacefully. And it wasn't like a relationship that was like we were like yelling at each other and giving each other a hard time or anything, really. I guess it just lasted for the season that it was, and then it was time to keep on keeping on. And I think we both left each other better than how we found each other. And almost right away, which isn't really like me, I started seeing someone else. And the same day she broke up with me, it was 5 minutes before my birthday in April. I get a message at 11:55 p.m. from her, and I'm thinking it's going to say happy birthday or something, but it's but that's okay. There's no hard feelings. That same day, I got an email from this yoga place offering me a free class for my birthday. And this girl I know that teaches there, and I kind of had we had met there years before. My girlfriend at that time was a yoga teacher. We went to this workshop, and she introduced me to her friend. And at the end of the workshop, my girlfriend was talking with some other people, and this friend of hers asked me if I wanted to go wait outside. I said, sure. So we go outside, and we just like looked at each other, and we just stared into each other's eyes for, I don't know how long ago it was or how long it was, but it was a while, and we didn't say anything. We just looked at each other and just stared into each other's eyes for a while. And I thought, wow, is she the one? But didn't say anything about it. Neither one of us said anything, did anything, never acted on that. She was my girlfriend's friend, and I was committed. And funny to say like committed in a relationship, and then say like someone is committed, it kind of like also sounds like to a mental hospital. They use the same word for that. Huh. But anyways, so fast years go by, and then I get this email for the yoga class, and I knew whose class I wanted to take. I knew I wanted to take her class, but I was pretending to think about it. And So I sent her a message like, "Oh, I got this email from a free class, and I was thinking about taking, I just asked her like advice on what class to take, and she asked me what I was looking for, and I described her way. And I did it on purpose, but I did it. It was honest, really. And her response was like, "Me? Question mark? LOL." And so I ended up going to her class. She sent me a message asking how I felt about it later on, and I told her I liked it. I did. She's a good teacher, and then we ended up meeting for dinner the next day, and we went back to her apartment to hang out and talk, and we discovered that we both felt the same thing years before at the workshop when we were looking at each other. And I had no idea. I mean, it seemed like something was happening then, and so we just kind of like started. And she was the one to kind of say something first, and then, well, we were seeing each other for a little bit, and then stopped. Just became friends again, and that's kind of how it still is. It's kind of like sometimes it seems like something might spark up, and then it's just like just friends, just, and that's okay. So as of today, I'm neither trying for or resisting anything about that. And the other night, I sent her a message, and I knew she was teaching. It's like, look at the moon. And she sent me a message a little bit later that said that she was looking at the moon at that time. And when her and I went out to the woods, of course, there's a woodpecker sighting. She usually doesn't see them. Like a few woodpecker things. It's like, well, what's that a sign of? If the woodpecker comes with one relationship, what does it mean? She's the one, and then but that ended, and then it happens again. What do we make out of it? So I just think maybe we just think it's nice to have some mystery. I mean, it wouldn't be very much fun if we already knew what was going to happen and knew all the reasons behind everything. But as I say, her and I are just friends, and um, yeah. So I have a few things to read here. This is from Tagore. Let me find it. This is from Tagore. The book is The Essential Tagore. Do you hear the song? Do you hear the song playing in my mind as you flash past my eyes? Sun rays suck dew from the flower's bosom. Do you sip my soul's song in the same way? When my listless heart strays outdoors, it yields itself up everywhere. What tender leaves whisper to the light at dawn, convey my mind's innermost musings. Do you sip my soul song in the same way? Cool. Uh, Same book. The moon's laughter has broken all bounds and light overflows. O Rajaniganda, pour out, will you, the nectar of your fragrance? The mad wind fails to understand where it has been directed, cherishes instead the company of all it passes by the flower in the garden. The forehead of the blue skies is smeared today in sandalwood, as Saraswati's swans spread their wings today. The moon sprinkles the earth with the pollen of the flower of paradise. Light the nuptial lamp, will you, lady in the celestial abode? There's Are you out for a rendezvous this stormy night? Are you out for a tryst this stormy night, my soulmate, my friend? The sky cries out despondently. Sleep won't come to my eyes. Opening the door, beloved. I keep looking for you longingly, my soulmate, my friend. I can't see anything outside. I wonder which path you are taking. Could you be on the bank of a far-off river, at the edge of a dense forest, or crossing a vast expanse of darkness? Where could you be, my soulmate, my friend? I think that's all from this book. Sorry, I'm flipping through. I have all these bookmarks. Yeah. There's interesting things when we take on this I don't know if like spiritual path is quite the right way, or mystic path, or I don't call myself a mystic or anything. That's just in the name, and I am interested in the mystical and all of that, but uh, there is something about when we take this path that we're looking at these signs and what are they telling us, and sometimes it seems like we're just like set up for another hard lesson. I have a couple friends now. Well, I guess everybody is kind of going through a rough time, aren't they? Nobody here is like, yeah, everything's great. No, some stuff's great, some stuff isn't. I have a couple friends, and it's interesting. Like moving, like both like so. That friend I was just talking about, she just moved, and um, there was a couple problems with the new place that she moved into, and she's trying to sort that out, and she's um, having a little bit of a rough time of it. I mean, she's renting the place and they're fixing what she's talked about, but um, she was talking to me about a little bit ago, and I sent a screenshot, or I sent her a picture of this little story. This one's from a book called Being a Wounded Healer. And I have this other friend, we kind of dated too also, but she's about to be moving and she's stressed out. She moved to a different state to be closer to her now ex-boyfriend. That didn't work out. She was ignoring the red flags too, and so that didn't work out. And now she's moving back, and I sent her. She hasn't returned my last couple messages for some reason. I mean, it hasn't been that long since she responded to me, but for some reason, I think she's just under a lot of pressure. But the friend of mine that I was talking about before, I sent her this. This is from the book Being a Wounded Healer. Read again, and meditate on the following. There's a story about an old grandfather clock which had stood in the same corner of the same house for 3 generations, never stopping in its task of marking the minutes, the hours, and the days. All of its strength and energy came from a heavy weight which was held by a double chain. Too bad, thought its present owner, that such an old clock should have to always carry that heavy load. So he took the weight off of the double chain and removed it from the clock. Now, why did you do that? Asked the old grandfather clock. I thought I ought to make your burden easier, said the man. Please, said the clock, put my weight back. I can do nothing without that burden. I'm as good as dead if I cannot carry that load. Yeah, there's something about like if you're choosing the spiritual path, you better watch out. And I mean, it does seem like some people kind of like just kind of like skim through life, and they don't seem to have a lot of major problems. And then, but maybe they're not like such deep people either. But a lot of the people that I know that are, these are tough comparisons. But the people that I know that are on the spiritual path, it's like there's just always that weight, cross to bear or whatever. So how do we know when we're supposed to like keep on with the signs, or keep on the path? And you know, our relationships make up so much of our life. The quality of our relationships takes up I mean, for me anyway, it takes up a lot of my thinking throughout the day. I'm thinking of, you know, who I may be, my friends and stuff, like the girl, or we're going, is something going to happen or not, or what's going on here. And I'm thinking about different people going through these tough times, and there's but it's like when do we throw in the towel? Like if we're with someone, when do we say, okay, I'm done? I don't care if what the woodpecker says. I'm out of here. Here's a Bob Marley quote. There's a couple of them here. I looked up this one in particular. I wanted to make sure it was him because I saw it online, like a meme. If she's amazing, she won't be easy. If she's easy, she won't be amazing. If she's worth it, you won't give up. If you give up, you're not worthy. Truth is, everybody is going to hurt you. You just got to find the ones worth suffering for. Here's another one, Bob Marley. He's not perfect. You aren't either. And the two of you will never be perfect. But if he can make you laugh at least once, causes you to think twice, and if he admits to being human and making mistakes, hold on to him and give him the most you can. He isn't going to quote poetry. He's not thinking about you every moment, but he will give you a part of him that he knows you could break. Don't hurt him, don't change him, and don't expect for more than he can give. Don't analyze. Smile when he makes you happy, yet when he makes you mad, yell when he makes you mad, and miss him when he's not there. Love hard when there is love to be had, because perfect guys don't exist, but there's always one guy that is perfect for you. Last one from him. You say you love the rain, but you use an umbrella to walk under it. You say you love the sun, but you seek shelter when it's shining. You say you love wind, but when it comes, you close your windows. So that's why I'm scared when you say you love me. Yeah. Um, there's a Rocky quote that I like that just popped into my mind a little bit ago. It's like, you have gaps, I have gaps. Together we fill those gaps. I won't analyze that one too much. But there's something about those obstacles and stuff that make everything stronger. Your relationship goes through a tough time. Like a little bit of a rough thing happens, you learn how to get through it and make it stronger. And then when the bigger things happen, you get stronger and stronger still. And you get, I was thinking of, the literal path and like literal trees falling over it, rocks in the way, muddy parts. And when we're on it, we can use that to increase our agility and strength. Move the tree off the path, move the rock, jump over the mud. And then in the relationship with someone, we can kind of learn to do the same, and finding somebody that's with us, like what that going back to that committed thing. You might have to be crazy to commit to someone. Wouldn't somebody have to be crazy to commit to you? But somehow, finding someone to fill those gaps in yourself and be encouraging for you to do how you want to do better, but not try to change you and have that love be like a conditional thing. That gets pretty weird. And this friend of mine that's moving back after moving out of state, the guy that she was with was like wanting to change things about her, and she was wanting to change things about him too. And seeing it from outside, like, what are you people doing? But who listens to that? There's I started reading through the Rubaiyat. I think that's how you pronounce it. Omar Khayyam. And there was a couple of things I wanted to read here. Oppose all resurrections of your past. Resent no anguish still prepared for you. Dwell lightly on your entrance and your exits. Drink, never cast your essence to the wind. Okay. Some of these may be like more or less relative. I'm going through this and trying to like dig into understanding these, because some of these translations are very different from others. I mean, when you're translating something that's, when did he live? Omar Khayyam, a few hundred years, 15th century. Or wait, 12th century. Yeah, so Omar Khayyam lived in the 12th century. So this stuff is so old, but it's so good. If these translations are right, who the hell knows? But this translation is supposed to be better than another one that I had. On every path I take, your snares are spread to entrap me should I walk without due care. Utter extremes acknowledge your vast sway. You order all things, yet you call me a rebel. I think that's it for that book. So as you can tell, I'm kind of just like in our daily life. What do we have going on? Well, what are you doing today? Okay, you're going to work. You got to come home. You got to do this. Well, what about the relationship with your mom? Oh, well, yeah, that's going on too. There's this thing. And then what about your kids? Oh, yeah, well, this. Okay, well, what about your health, your exercise routine? Oh, yeah, and there's this. What are you reading? Oh, well, there. So each day were these were the extremely complicated, endlessly layered lives. And in a way, that's kind of how I'm putting some of these shows together, or that's how I'm going to justify not making linear points. I think I did a good job there, didn't I? No, I read like all these old poems and old books, these ancient philosophies, and but it is tough to beat some Grateful Dead lyrics. If my words did glow with the gold of sunshine, and my tunes were played on the harp unstrung, would you hear my voice come through the music? Would you hold it near as it were your own? It's a hand-me-down. The thoughts are broken. Perhaps they're better left unsung. I don't know. Don't really care. Let there be songs to fill the air. Ripple in still water, where there is no pebble tossed, nor wind to blow. Reach out your hand, if your cup be empty. If your cup is full, may it be again. Let it be known, there is a fountain that was not made by the hands of men. There is a road, no simple highway, between the dawn and the dark of night. And if you go, no one may follow. That path is for your steps alone. Ripple in still water, where there is no pebble tossed, nor wind to blow. You who choose to lead must follow, but if you fall alone. If you should stand, then who's to guide you? If I knew the way, I would take you home. God. Words by Robert Hunter. Music by Jerry Garcia. What a powerful song. Powerful words. Robert Hunter, man, I just here's a little different feel for it's still a Grateful Dead song. Still has to do with relationships. Inside you're burning. I can see clear through. Your eyes tell more than you mean them to. Lit up and flashing like the reds and blues out there on the neon avenue. But I feel like a stranger. Feel like a stranger. While the music's thundering, we're restless and hot. You keep firing glances across the room, and I can't stop wondering just what you got. Get the feeling I'm gonna find out real soon. Still, I feel like a stranger. Feel like a stranger. Well, you know it's gonna get stranger, so let's get on with the show. Yes, and the wheel gets smoking around midnight. You shoot me a look that says let's go. Yes, and it feels just like running a red light. There ain't no point in looking behind us, no. Still I feel like a stranger, feel like a stranger. You know it keeps getting stranger and stranger. If it's love, then how would I know? Yes, and it's going to get stranger. Some things you just know. If this were love, then how would I know? Feel like a stranger, feel like a stranger, feel like a stranger, feel like a stranger. It's going to be a long, hot, crazy night. It's going to be a long, long, crazy, crazy night. Yeah, crazy night. Silky, silky, crazy, crazy night. Words by John Barlow. Music by Bob Weir. Sometimes I was thinking of like this relationship with the friend of mine that I've been talking about mostly here. Going from being more than friends to just friends. And, I had in my mind, like, well, why? Why are we doing that? I'm the same, I guess, same and different. Whatever little changes I've made along the way. And she's the same. So, like, why are there these differences, these variations of like, lust, I guess, to whatever degree of love or whatever, whether that's just as a friend. It's like this person, I'm not giving up on this person. We're not like giving up. There was never like, well, we're never going to talk again. It was always just these. But I had in my mind these little images pop into my mind. It was like an elliptical orbit, and like we're revolving also, like two planets, and so we're revolving and going around in this elliptical orbit. And sometimes our orbits are closer to each other when we pass, and then sometimes not so close when they pass. But they're always like in these adjacent orbits, orbiting each other somehow. I don't have the whole metaphor completely thunk out, but you get the idea. And it's like maybe there's like at some point where we'll end up in the same orbit. We'll end up like we'll get close enough, and then we're really linked. Our gravitational pull won't go back apart anymore, or maybe not. Maybe we'll push each other into outer space or something else. And there's that song I read on the air not too long ago. Find Yourself by Lucas Nelson. Is it Lucas? Willie Nelson's son. It was like, I hope you find yourself before I find somebody else to be my love. I probably say too much on this show. I probably say too much, but I'm honest. This is a book. I'm going to read a few things out of this book from, it's called Sanskrit Poetry from Vidyakar's Treasury by Daniel H. Ingalls. And this is on, there's different parts of this. It's divided up, and this is from the Blossoming of Love section. Uh, it's from a bunch of different poets over I don't even know how long of a time frame. I think they're very ancient. A lot of them I don't even know how ancient. Some of them are a little, you know. Uh, my eyes with difficulty pass her thighs, to wander long in the land about her hips, then at her waist, uneven with the triple fold, become quite powerless to move. But now at last, like travelers parched by thirst, they've climbed the mountains of her breasts and see at last what they had hoped, their counterparts, her eyes that flow with tears. Yeah, I'm not going to really analyze these, but that's by Sri Harsa Deva. That just kind of like remind me of like you're checking somebody out and you're attracted, and then you look into her eyes and you see that she's like feeling the same way. I think I've read this one before. Her glances first came hesitant and sidelong, then soft and shy with love. A while they rested on me motionless, then slowly turned away. Her pupils widening behind long lashes told of the admiration that she felt. My heart, poor thing without defense, was captured, cut up, swallowed, and now is lost for a. By Bava Beauty. I have a couple of them here. Let me find. Sorry. Um, sorry, I think I um, put my. I could put my bookmark in the wrong place here. I shall hit pause. Okay, had to hit pause there for a second. I was looking right at it. Um, when I was present, she cast aside her glance and laughed at conversation that concerned me not. Restrained in what she did by her good breeding, she neither showed her love nor quite concealed it. By Kalidasa. So many interesting things. There's some other one I was wanting to read, but here we go. This is from Tagore again. This is one I forgot about. I'll overcome you not with my beauty, but with my love. I'll open doors not with my hands, but with my love. I'll deck myself neither in ornaments nor with flowers. I'll adorn your neck only with a garland made out of love. None will know about the storm swaying my soul invisibly like the tide with the moon. You have me rolling. I think I'll leave it there. And there's one thing I was wanting to read from the Prophet, Khalil Gibran, and I'll wrap it up after this. And for whatever reason, you know what, I suppose it's a quite a natural thing, but when people like are going through some kind of a hard time, and well, I'm not going to talk about that at the moment. This is from the prophet. And a woman spoke, saying, "Tell us of pain." And he said, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding, even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so must you know pain. And could you keep your heart in wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would not seem less wondrous than your joy. And you would accept the seasons of your heart, even as you have always accepted the seasons that pass over your fields. And you would watch with serenity through the winters of your grief. Much of your pain is self-chosen. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. For his hand, though heavy and hard, is guided by the tender hand of the unseen. And the cup he brings, though it burn your lips, has been fashioned of the clay which the potter has moistened with his own sacred tears. So as I look out on my path and I'm taking in all these things, and I see like what's working for me and in my life, and like what's just like obstacles along the way, just got to like climb over some stuff and gain more strength and agility from it, and then look at like the dead ends. And one thing that has been uh, uh, such a cool path is this podcast for me. Next month makes a year. Today is January 22nd. I know most people don't listen in, people listen to the show like, there's like a spike and then it keeps like going. People still listen to the older shows, which is really cool. There's no, most of them don't have anything time sensitive about them. They're all like standalone um, kinds of things. But this podcast has been something that it's taken work for sure, but everything seems to be going so well with it. My guests and the listeners are growing. Uh, Most people do listen, but there is a YouTube channel also, Fitness and Consciousness YouTube channel. And you can also find Fitness and Consciousness on Patreon and watch the video on there. And then you can still listen on, pretty much any source that there is. I have some great guests coming up. I don't want to say who until it actually happens. And by the time most of you hear this show, they probably would have already been on anyway. So thank you everyone for listening. See you next time.